Yo, what is going on YouTube? It is your boy Jeezy TV. Quite an important review here. We have a pretty big movie in horror. We're talking about the 1999 American supernatural horror film, written, directed, and edited by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. We have the Blair Witch Project. This is probably one of, if not the most iconic found footage horror film ever. So, yeah, it's crazy, man. We're gonna get through the plot. We're gonna get through critical reception, kind of my thoughts on things, just kind of bouncing ideas over here, kind of have a discussion. Let me know in the comments section how you feel about the movie. Let's get into it. By the way, this is a spoiler review. We're gonna be telling you guys everything, every little detail about this movie, what happens. So yeah, if you've never watched this movie, go watch it and then come back. So this film purports to be footage found in the discarded cameras of the three young filmmakers who had gone missing. It's a found footage film. Watched a couple of those on this channel. We've watched something Haven, I can't remember. Wreck, recorded like the Wreck movie. We watched here. Creep, we've reviewed on this channel. We've watched all sorts of found footage horror films. This isn't a new concept to me. So, in October 1994, film students Heather, Mike, and Josh set out to produce a documentary about the mythical Blair Witch, which I don't know how much of a popular myth that is anymore, if that still has cultural relevance, but maybe around the time, I don't know. I don't know if this is fictional. I don't really know. I don't know the background on this. So they travel to Burkittsville, Maryland, and interview residents about the myth. You know what they think about it, because it's in the area. It's like a local thing. It's a pretty big deal. So locals tell them of Rustin Parr, a hermit who lived in the forest and abducted 7 kids in the 1940s. He murdered them all in his basement, killing them in pairs while having one stand in a corner. And they feel like that's kind of where this myth birthed from. Maybe it actually did birth from it. I don't know. It's kind of confusing. I don't know. So, the students explore the forest in North Burkittsville to research the myths and see if they can find the area where all this shit is happening, find all the crazy stuff. So, they meet 2 fishermen, one of whom warns them that the forest is cursed, don't go in there, it's like a bad omen, blah blah blah. He tells them of a young child named Robin Weaver who went missing in 1888. When she returned 3 days later, she talked about an old woman whose feet never touched the ground. It was like a floating person. It was like a spirit, like some sort of creature. Yeah, a witch probably. So the students hiked to Coffin Rock, where 5 men were found ritualistically slaughtered in the 19th century. Their corpses later disappeared. So, yeah, there's a lot of history in this forest. A lot of crazy events kind of took place. So they camp for the night, and the next day find an old graveyard with 7 small cairns, one of which Josh accidentally knocks over. It's like a pile of rocks. It's like a burial, kind of, what it is. It's where, it's when people didn't have tombstones and stuff, that's what they used, just a pile of rocks, pretty much. So that night they hear the sound of sticks snapping, which could be anything. It could obviously be the wildlife in the forest. They don't think much of it. So the following day, they try to hike back to the car, but cannot find it before dark, and make camp. Now, they weren't really planning on staying here for more than a couple of days, but they can't find the car. They're kind of losing their way here, as is expected to happen in a forest, obviously. So they again hear stick snapping. Again, not really much to say about it. This movie isn't super intense until it's kind of like a late bloomer film. It doesn't get super scary, super crazy, super intense, like, oh, I'm like shivering right now, until later on. But in the morning they find that 3 cairns have been built beside their tent. Now they're like, wait a fucking minute, this was not here before. Heather learns her map is missing. Maybe some weird entity came through and took her map. But yeah, now that her map is gone, it's pretty much survival of the fittest, and this is really where the film starts and where things kind of start to get intense here. So Mike reveals he kicked the map into a creek out of frustration, which provokes a fight between the trio as they realize they're lost. At first, Heather thinks, oh, did they take it? But no, Mike comes out and says he threw it into the creek. So now really the only weird sign is these cairns sitting out, and it's in a triangle which represents something evil, obviously. Like, we've seen it in horror movies before. So yeah, there's definitely something around. They just don't know what it is, and it doesn't seem to pose a super huge threat. Just maybe sending a warning, sending a message about this forest. I don't know. So, yeah. Now we're like, okay, we're lost. We gotta get the fuck out of here, or else we're gonna die of starvation, of hunger, of sleep deprivation, probably, and yeah. So they decide to head south using Heather's compass and discovering stick figures hanging from trees, which is like the symbol of the Blair Witch, I guess. And I don't know if they knew that or not, but they didn't really, it's kind of weird because you watch this movie and you're like, well, it doesn't seem like they really did much research going into this trip. They again hear mysterious sounds that night, including children laughing. So now they're like, okay, there's something fucking weird going on. The laughing is like, yeah, we're in a predicament here. After an unknown force shakes the tent, they hide in a forest until dawn. Ah, yeah, it's crazy. It's getting crazy. It's getting intense. And, yeah. And this movie really utilizes, like, unseen horrors to, like, scare you. It's really effective. So upon returning to their tent, they find that their possessions have been rifled through, and Josh's equipment is covered with this weird slimy stuff. So they come across a river identical to one they crossed earlier and realize they have been walking in circles and their whole day was fucking wasted pretty much. So this is like day 3 of being in the forest. They were only supposed to be there for 2 days. They're now here for 3 and they're right back to where they are. So you gotta assume it's gonna take them a couple more days to get out. But they're lost. So it seems like they're just gonna die in there. And eventually throughout the film, you know, the character development, they kind of accept that. Yeah, so Josh vanishes the next morning, and Heather and Mike try in vain to find him. And they're like, yeah, these people probably took him. And that's kind of what you think. That night, they hear Josh's agonized cries, but are unable to find them. They theorize that his yells are a fabrication by the Blair Witch to draw them out of their camp. Maybe they just took Josh prisoner, kept him silent, and then lured them there. It's really weird. He just kind of disappears, and again, there's a lot of unseen horror. You don't really see this thing or this witch that's causing these problems. Excuse me. So the next day, Heather discovers a bundle of twigs tied with fabric from Josh's shirt. Probably represents something, but I'm not very well versed in like cult things. I don't know. So upon opening the bundle, she also finds a blood-soaked scrap of his shirt containing teeth and hair. So it's like, yeah, this witch probably killed this man. Like, we can kind of either that or torture the shit out of him. He might as well be dead by now. So although distraught, she does not tell Mike, which is a stupid idea. Like, because Mike doesn't know what the hell is going on. How the hell do you expect him to help you and be reasonable when you're not telling him all the details? Like, he doesn't know his friend's probably tortured and dead. So that night, she records herself apologizing to her own, Mike's, and Josh's families, taking responsibility for the predicament. She kind of like dragged them into this trip. She wants to take responsibility. It's a really sad scene, and that's where the cover of the movie comes from, her at that angle. And it just sucks, man. It's a really sad thing to think about happening, if that happened in real life. So that night, they hear Josh calling out to them and follow his voice to the abandoned ruins of the House of Rust and Parr, featuring demonic symbols and children's bloody handprints on the walls. So yeah, something fucked happened here, of course. Like, we know that the townspeople kind of told them about it. And this is like the final boss. This is like the third act. This is where everything goes down. And this movie has some pretty interesting pacing. And I feel like that's what makes it so revolutionary, so iconic to the horror genre. It's just so different, you know. So trying to locate Josh, they go to the basement where an unseen force assaults Mike, causing him to drop his camera. A lot of things are kind of up for interpretation. I think they leave a lot of things up in the air as to what happened to these people. We're assuming they died, but like, did they have to die necessarily? I don't know. So Heather enters the basement yelling, and her camera captures Mike standing in a corner facing the wall, assuming he's been like possessed or like hypnotized or something weird like that. Heather calls out to him, but he doesn't react. It's fucking creepy, and this whole time I'm turning the volume down on my phone, waiting for a jump scare. And the unseen force assaults Heather, causing her to scream and drop her camera, and that's the end of the film. It's really interesting. I mean, it's definitely very polarizing. People have a lot of things to say about this. I don't know if I like the ending or not, but it's definitely an intense movie. It's not going to get a rewatch, but it's definitely worth everyone's time to watch it at least one time. It's only an hour 20 minutes, and with the credits, it's only like an hour 15 realistically. So, yeah, let's get into the review. Yeah, I mean, getting into the review, this is a pretty iconic movie. I mean, at a time when digital techniques can show us almost anything, the Blair Witch Project is a reminder that what really scares us is the stuff we can't see. And a lot of the times with found footage films, that's kind of the case. You can't see stuff, but you're like right there with them. It feels like a super personal experience when you're watching this movie. Yeah, I mean, the noise in the dark is almost always scarier than what makes the noise in the dark. Yeah, the sound effects, all that. It's a good movie, I would say. It's not amazing, but I think it's a good movie. I mean, full of creepy campfire scares. Mock Doc, the Blair Witch Project, keeps audiences in the dark about its titular villain, proving once more that imagination can be as scary as anything off screen. And that's kind of like the main sentiment, the main thing that people are talking about. Like, the things that you can't see are going to be scarier than the things that actually appear on the camera. You know, and it's a really interesting thing. It's great. I mean, it's a must-see movie, of course. I think it's pretty damn good. The found footage technique is amazing. Like, it's done to perfection here, I think. Like, other found footage movies have failed in the footsteps of this movie, but this movie does a great job. I mean, it's obviously not the first found footage film. The independent film was declared a milestone in film history due to its success in the found footage. It's an extraordinarily effective horror film. I mean, that's all there is to it. I mean, it's a groundbreaker in fright that reinvents scary for the new millennium. At the time, it's an intensely imaginative piece of conceptual filmmaking that also delivers the goods as a dread-drenched horror movie. This movie puts a clever modern twist on the universal fear of the dark and things that go bump in the night. It's good. I mean, as a horror picture, the film may not be much more than a cheeky game, a novelty with the cool, blurry look of an avant-garde artifact, but as a manifestation of multimedia synergy, it's pretty spooky. It's scary. It's a little, like, maybe people overrated it a little much. I mean, the rendition of the ultimate triumph of the Sundance scam, make a heartless home movie, get enough critics to blurb and near unison scary and watch the suckers flock to be fleeced. That's not true. I was not disappointed with this. Obviously, people talked it up a lot, and I understand that it can be a little overrated, but, I mean, the concept and the scares are definitely innovative. I mean, it could have just been a 30-minute short. Hell, it could have been shorter than it even was. I mean, since its shaky camera work and fuzzy images get monotonous after a while, and there's not much room for character development within the very limited plot, you could have made it shorter, I guess. I mean, I don't know. People don't like it, but I don't really mind it at all. I'm out, though. I can't be talking about this movie too much. I mean, it's only an hour 20. I can't sit here for 15 minutes and rant to you guys, even though it's going to be close to that time. I'm out, guys. Peace.